Welcome back into the lunch break. Chris Schubert here with you on the Tuesday edition of the program. Appreciate you joining us here on the show. It was in our morning meeting today that producer Evan asked me a question. And it led to the conversation that we're about to have because I had somewhat of a smart response to him because he asked me, or he put on our show rundown about potential topics, and it's actually still up there. I did not realize it was still up there because we kicked around, is there anything that you want to see in these last 4 games for the Phoenix Suns? And my answer was for them to be over so that we can get on with this summer that is going to be so important, where there are important, long-lasting decisions that need to be made pretty quickly after the season is over. And so that leads us to a question. Continuity or change? Which path do the Suns choose? Which path should the Suns choose? 2 camps. The continuity camp, we're keeping the front office. We're not making another coaching change. We're just going to make changes to the roster once again. And that may or may not include trading Kevin Durant. It may or may not include a trade of Bradley Beal or waiving and stretching Bradley Beal. But the continuity from the top down, ownership, front office, coaching, it's going to remain mostly unchanged because we don't want to have 4 coaches in 4 years. We don't want to be looked at as a dysfunctional group that doesn't know what they are doing. That's the continuity camp. Then there is the change camp. This is the camp that I find myself in. I tend to be the ringleader of this camp. And that camp is, I've given this front office chance after chance after chance to put together a championship roster. They have had opportunity after opportunity to get the right coach in here. It has not worked. I need a new voice. I need a new vision. And if I am going to change the coach or if I am going to change the general manager, I need it to be both. If the Suns chose at the end of the season to move on from James Jones, any new general manager is going to want to pick their guy. Because if you don't allow them to pick their guy, their coach, you put Mike Budenholzer directly on the hot seat the moment the season begins, and that's just not going to work for anybody. So if you want to make a change in the front office, I think it means you need to make a change in the coaching ranks. If you are making a change in the coaching ranks, that to me is another blemish on the record of James Jones, furthering, I think, the need to get fresh voices. I don't know if a new coach or a new GM turns this around quicker. I don't. I'll be the first to admit. I don't know if a new GM and a new coach takes a 3 or 4 year process and turns it into a 2 or a 3 year process. I don't know if you lop off a year of this retool, this transition by doing this. I don't. It may be the same amount of time. But I know as a fan of this team, as somebody who wants to see this team do well, let's face it, my job's a lot easier when the team is winning, and it's more fun when the team is winning than when they are losing. We've been having these conversations since January. I'm kind of getting tired of it. It's kind of getting a little boring. And so by making these changes, by getting that fresh voice in front office, by getting a fresh voice in the coaching ranks, you might be able to get more out of your young players. You may be able to have better drafts, even though you have limited draft capital and you'll be picking towards the back part of the draft for a really long time. You may bring somebody in who's really good at player development, really good at scouting, puts together the right staff, and you can identify players that can help turn this thing around. You don't know until you try, and here's what I do know. Here's the one thing I do know. This group has had chance after chance after chance. I'm not interested in them getting another shot at this. There's the phrase, the devil you know versus the devil you don't. In this scenario, I don't think it can get any worse by changing things up. If you brought in a new GM and you brought in a new head coach and you saw a similar season to this year, Would you be upset that they made the change, or would you understand that it's part of the process? See, the results next year don't really matter. I think the expectation is they can be better than they were this year, but the expectations will be morphed into, this isn't a championship team. We're on the path again. We're trying to get back to that. So you would give a coach a little more runway. Bud didn't get any runway. You were supposed to fix all this. You didn't. And so continuity, change, these are the two camps. I am firmly in the camp that this team needs major changes. They don't need Band-Aids. They need surgery. That is where this team sits right now with 4 games to play. And they're not going to have Kevin Durant tonight. He's out with that ankle injury. And I tend to think that's all she wrote. What is the Looney Tunes? That's all, folks? Kevin Durant. That's all, folks. His son's career, done. I think. I think this year he's done. We'll have the debate later this week about what the summer looks like because there's a lot of pushback to this idea that they're going to trade him, and I just don't get it. But continuity or change, those are the two choices that are presented in front of you as a Suns fan. You can choose which path you want this team to go down, and I really don't think it's a choice. You don't want to see more of the same because more of the same is just a big pile of disappointment.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to run it back. Well, I can imagine that they would try to run it back, but that you would be excited about the the chance that they run it back, given the change, whether it ends up in the same season or same exact season or not, it gives you an opportunity to grow, to see something different. I don't know how you could sit here and say, I want them to come back with the same team, the same front office. 4 coaches in 4 years for the same results, to me, shows that there's a culture issue, not from the head coach, but from the front office. Yeah. And at some point, the culture comes down from the general manager's room, it comes down from the front office, and goes into the locker room. And that seems to be the problem here.
I think it's unfair to use the term toxic. I think that's unfair. But it's the word that comes to mind because it's just not working. And when something is not working to this extreme, we would all agree, right? This is an extreme. This isn't supposed to be this bad. You may not have thought this team was going to win a championship, but the idea that it was going to be this bad was on none of our radars. So when it goes to this extreme, you have to think in extreme terms. You have to think, I can't just tinker with the roster here and there. I can't keep the coach and hope that if I change out some of the players, everything's going to be okay. This is an extreme problem. It requires an extreme answer. It requires you to do things that are somewhat drastic. And now, most of the time, I'm not the listen to the fans guy. I'm not the you have to listen to the noise, because if you listen to the noise too much, you end up losing your job. But the fans, you, the listener of this program, me, somebody who wants this team to succeed. I've been here over a decade. This has become my basketball team, okay? I have moved here from the East Coast where I didn't grow up watching a ton of basketball. I have embraced this basketball team as my own. I want this team to do well. I want this team to succeed. We all gave this group, the multiple coaches, all of the roster changes, we gave them chance after chance after chance. This is not us rushing to judgment 10 games into the season. If after 11 games of this season, people were calling for Torey Lovullo to be fired, if that was the conversation we were having today, I would say, whoa, easy. We're being a little irrational. We are putting the cart in front of the horse. We're doing way too much. For us to maybe question whether or not this team needs to make wholesale changes at the end of what will be their 3rd season, 2.5, if you want to be technical about it with Kevin Durant, but they had 3 potential postseasons. They will have 1 series win, and that's it. I'm sorry, I've given this team enough of a runway. This team has had a long enough runway to try to figure this out. It is time for change.
To me, there's one way to describe the 2024-2025 Suns. One word: failure. And that means change,
and
period.
When you invoke that word, continuity is not the answer.